Hi everyone, Donna here. Ignore the monster in the back. She is practicing for her college entrance exam, her ACT test. So, a little stressed out. Anyhow, today I want to talk about what bank reconciliation is and why it needs to be done. I just looked at a set of books last week, and the client had someone who is supposed to be very experienced, very good, do his books for a long time. She said that the books were complete through the middle of this year, and I went and looked at it, and nothing had been reconciled. She had reconciled last year for the checking account. Nothing had been reconciled for anything else, and he had more than one account. And that kind of brings me to the question, what on earth is bank reconciliation, and why should you care? Well, during the reconciliation process, I take all of the transactions that have been entered into the software and I match them up against that month's bank statement to make sure that they match, to make sure the amounts are correct, and to make sure that things like, I want to make sure that a check didn't go through twice. That has happened to my clients. I want to make sure that a check for $10 didn't run for $1,000. I want to make sure that the legal line on the check actually reflects the number in the figures box. The legal line, by the way, is where you write out the amount, and I have once been distracted in the middle of writing a check for several $1,000s, and so I wrote, $8,000, and someone distracted me, and $5 instead of the hundreds and tens that needed to go there. But I had the figures correct, so I thought it was in the software correctly, and it wasn't. It's only happened once. I've seen checks go through for the wrong amount. I've seen the number one thing, though, that I see is that duplicate checks are entered into the software, QuickBooks usually, or that there are transactions missing from the software that reflect on the bank statement. Things like bills that were paid automatically, auto-pay through the bank, or a handwritten check or a personal withdrawal. So it's important to reconcile your account just to make sure that, if it's here, it should also be here. And if it's here but not here, and a long period of time has passed, and this time of year is really good to go through and just make sure that all of the checks that you wrote actually cleared. Because if they didn't, then you need to go back to the person that you wrote the check to and find out why. Why did they not receive it? Did they not cash it? And if it's no longer going to be a good check, is it something you stopped payment on? Is it one that you voided and you forgot about? But you need to, that kind of needs to be investigated so that then you can make sure that you are not waiting for checks to clear that are never going to clear. The other reason to do this, I have found errors, and I have found so many errors in QuickBooks in the bank account. I have found errors on the bank side, and I have found errors on the client side. And that's why reconciliation is important. About this time last year, I was looking at a software called Xero with an X, X-E-R-O. And it works almost entirely on bank feeds. And I was kind of going along with it. I was working for a different company at the time. I was kind of going along with it and I started out playing the devil's advocate and trying to find everything that was wrong with it. Because I didn't want us to switch if it wasn't going to suit. I have since found out that their bank feeds crash and break, and it's almost impossible for someone to go in with a view access under their logins and fix them, which means that they were having to go back to their clients. But the big thing for me is that just because it comes through the bank doesn't mean it should. Again, I have found substantial checks that have gone through the bank twice. And I don't mean it, it bounced and went through. I mean, it went through and then it went through again because it was the end of a fiscal year or something. So it's important to just double check. This is the place where mistakes are caught. It's really what it comes down to, is in the reconciliation. If you entered a check multiple times, and that does happen, then you can see that that's what's going on here. If a check goes through more than once, you can catch that. But if you don't reconcile your accounts, you have no way of knowing if your accounts are correct. And the catch to that is that, like pushing a snowball down a hill, if you go up on a really big hill and you make a little snowball and you push it down the hill, by the time it gets to the bottom, it's huge. It's a disaster. So if you allow this to continue and you're not making sure that you or your bookkeeper is reconciling your account monthly, then you really run a lot of risks with finding out 6 months later that someone, this has happened, 6 months later found out that someone had been embezzling funds by writing bad checks, or writing checks against the account with a duplicate check number for a different amount. They were either doing it electronically or something, but we had no way of knowing except that it wasn't coming back through on the reconciliation. That's how we caught it. I have found, like I said, I have found so many mistakes, so many errors, and I have even found fraud just simply by reconciling an account. Now, what does the bank reconciliation do? It ensures that all of the transactions that should be there are there, that all of the transactions that have hit the bank are in the software, that the ones in the software match what's in the bank, but it does not tell me if there have been, if those transactions are classified correctly. When I want to do that, I go back to the financials and I start looking at, especially monthly. That will really help. I can pull up a profit and loss by month and see, well, I should expect to see rent every month. And I should expect to see utilities every month for about the same amount. I should expect to see phone charges every month for about the same amount. And even the more variable expenses, such as payroll, cost of goods, should be within a certain percentage. Payroll, you know, it's going to depend on the industry, but it's within a certain percentage of gross revenue. Same thing with anything that is purchased as a cost of goods. For example, again, I'm going to go back to my auto repair shop that I work for a lot. I know that when their revenues drop, their parts prices, or their parts expense drop because they're not working on as many cars. When their revenue goes up, about a month later, their parts expense goes up, which is a cost of goods sold. That's something they're putting on the cars that are going to be going away. So I can kind of gauge that, you know, it's going to be between this much and this much, and if it's way over, then I'm going to kind of wonder, and if it's way under, then I'm going to kind of wonder. So that's the point of bank reconciliation. It is a critical part of the bookkeeping and accounting process. It cannot be, or should not be, left. It should not ever be done in a big bulk. I'm going to go ahead and reconcile 6 months at once. The reason for that is if you try to reconcile 6 months of bank statements at one time in one fell swoop, you end up actually needing to go back. If you find any mistakes, if it's perfect, that's fine. If you find any mistakes, however, then you have to go back and do it month by month so you can find where the mistakes are. And I have yet to, I just find it's just easier to do it month by month. Then also, if you have problems going back, let's say you find out that someone changed a transaction that had been previously reconciled, or they've marked something as reconciled that they shouldn't have, that wasn't cleared to the bank. You can then go back just to that month and very quickly clear that up. There's all kinds of mistakes that happen in the bookkeeping and accounting software. Even QuickBooks, maybe even especially QuickBooks, because it is so popular. It is very user-friendly. It's also very easy to mess up. So that's kind of it for tonight. I'm going to keep it kind of short, but that's why we reconcile. It is a critical part. You don't want to leave that months and months and months and months and months. It's important to stay on top of it. That also helps make sure that you know exactly what's going on with your business. I think next time I'm going to, well, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. I'll think about that. Have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you soon.